true crime story of H. Holmes, the first ever American serial killer. In the annals of American criminal history, few names evoke as much horror and fascination as that of H. Holmes. Born as Herman Webster Mudgett on May 16, 1861, in Gilmanton, New Hampshire, Holmes would eventually become a figure synonymous with malevolence and deceit. His life and crimes unfolded against the backdrop of the Gilded Age, a period marked by rapid industrialization and urbanization in the United States, which provided fertile ground for the emergence of both opportunity and vice. Holmes is often referred to as America's first serial killer, a title befitting a man whose heinous actions foreshadowed some of the most notorious figures in criminal history. He is best known for the chilling construction of his murder castle, a hotel designed not for hospitality, but for the systematic killing of unsuspecting guests. With a complex layout that included hidden rooms, secret passages, and traps, the castle was a testament to Holmes' twisted ingenuity and his deep understanding of human psychology. As we delve into the intricate details of Holmes' life, crimes, and the societal factors that allowed him to flourish, we will uncover the chilling reality of a man who turned the American dream into a nightmare. Through meticulously researched facts and narratives, we will explore how Holmes' story reflects the darker sides of human nature and the societal conditions of the time. Early life of H. Holmes and his family background. H. Holmes was born Herman Webster Mudgett on May 16, 1861, in Gilmanton, New Hampshire, into a relatively stable and middle-class family. He was the third of 5 children born to Levi Horton Mudgett and Theodate Page, both of whom were of English and Welsh descent. The Mudgett family was not wealthy, but they were comfortable enough, and young Herman experienced a childhood that was marked by both privilege and pressure. From an early age, Herman exhibited signs of intelligence and ambition. He was an excellent student and was particularly adept in the sciences. However, his childhood was not without its challenges. Accounts suggest that he was often bullied by his peers, leading him to develop an intense desire for control and power. This desire would later manifest in his adult life, culminating in his heinous crimes. His education and early signs of psychopathy. Holmes' early education took place in local public schools, where he demonstrated a keen aptitude for learning. At the age of 16, he graduated from high school and went on to attend the University of Vermont. However, he dropped out after just 1 year, citing personal reasons. He later enrolled at Hannibal LaGrange College in Missouri, where he again struggled to adapt and eventually left without completing his degree. Despite his academic setbacks, it was during this time that Holmes began to display disturbing traits that hinted at his later murderous tendencies. He became fascinated with death and anatomy, often engaging in macabre experiments. There are reports of him acquiring the skeletal remains of animals, which he would then dissect. This fascination with death would foreshadow his later actions, as it became a driving force behind his criminal endeavors. Holmes' initial criminal activities. Holmes' foray into crime began in earnest during his time at college. He was known for his charisma and charm, which he used to manipulate those around him. One of his earliest criminal acts involved a scheme to defraud an insurance company. He purchased a horse and buggy, then arranged for it to be stolen, collecting the insurance payout for the loss. This marked the beginning of his life of deceit and manipulation. After leaving college, Holmes moved to Chicago in 1886, where he took on the name H. Holmes. He began working as a pharmacist, and it was here that he continued to hone his skills in deception. Holmes quickly ingratiated himself with the local community, earning a reputation as a trustworthy businessman. However, his real intentions were far more sinister. During this time, he became involved in a series of small-time cons and scams. He was known to swindle unsuspecting victims out of their money, often using elaborate ruses to gain their trust. His charm and intelligence allowed him to escape suspicion, and this laid the groundwork for his later, more horrific crimes. Influence of society and the Gilded Age. The late 19th century was a time of immense change in America, characterized by rapid industrialization, urbanization, and social upheaval. The Gilded Age saw a drastic shift in societal norms, with the rise of the middle class and a growing fascination with wealth and success. This environment was ripe for individuals like Holmes, who exploited the vulnerabilities of others for personal gain. Additionally, the increasing anonymity of urban life in cities like Chicago provided opportunities for criminals to operate without fear of immediate detection. The chaotic and bustling nature of urban society allowed Holmes to blend into the background, making his nefarious activities easier to conceal. As Holmes continued to navigate this landscape of opportunity, his early life experiences marked by bullying, intelligence, charm, and a burgeoning interest in manipulation combined with the societal conditions of the era, set the stage for his transformation into one of America's most infamous serial killers. In short, the early life of H.H. Holmes is a complex tapestry woven from personal experiences and societal influences. His childhood experiences of bullying, coupled with his academic prowess and early criminal activities, helped shape a man who would go on to commit some of the most heinous acts in American history. As we move forward in this narrative, we will explore how these formative years culminated in the construction of the infamous murder castle and the chilling reality of Holmes' murderous spree. The Chicago World's Fair and the Murder Castle. The World's Columbian Exposition, held in Chicago in 1893, was a monumental event that celebrated the 400th anniversary of Christopher Columbus's arrival in the New World. This grand fair was not only a showcase of architectural and technological advancements, but also a testament to Chicago's recovery from the Great Fire of 1871. Spanning 6 months and attracting over 27 million visitors, it was a pivotal moment in American history and culture. The fair featured impressive structures, including the iconic White City, which was renowned for its neoclassical architecture adorned with brilliant white plaster. It was a time of optimism, innovation, and the burgeoning American identity, as cities across the nation sought to demonstrate their progress and modernity. However, amidst this celebration of human achievement, a darker story was unfolding just blocks away. As Chicago transformed into a bustling hub for visitors from all corners of the globe, H.H. Holmes seized the opportunity to expand his criminal enterprises. The influx of tourists provided the perfect cover for his sinister plans, as many unsuspecting individuals would fall prey to his charm and cunning. The construction of the Murder Castle. In 1889, just a few years before the World's Fair, Holmes had purchased a vacant lot in the neighborhood of Englewood, near the fairgrounds. He began construction on a building that would later be infamously dubbed the Murder Castle. What began as a hotel intended to accommodate the throngs of visitors to the World's Fair soon morphed into a nightmarish labyrinth designed for his nefarious purposes. The architectural design of the Murder Castle was as twisted as Holmes himself. The building featured a 3-story structure with more than 100 rooms, many of which were designed with the sole intention of trapping and killing unsuspecting victims. Holmes employed a series of deceptive and intricate designs, including secret passages. Holmes constructed concealed corridors that allowed him to navigate the hotel without being seen. These passages would often lead to rooms that were never intended for guests but instead served as a space for his gruesome activities. Soundproof rooms. Many of the rooms were soundproofed, allowing Holmes to carry out his horrific acts without drawing attention from neighboring guests or passers-by. Trapdoors and chutes. Some rooms contained trapdoors that led to hidden chutes, which Holmes used to dispose of bodies. These chutes led directly to the basement, where he would often dismember victims. Gas chambers. Holmes' sadistic ingenuity extended to the creation of gas chambers disguised as bathrooms. Victims would enter these rooms, believing they were simply using the facilities, only to be met with a deadly release of gas. Fireplaces and crematoriums. The basement contained a makeshift crematorium where Holmes would dispose of remains, ensuring that no evidence of his crimes would ever surface. Holmes hired local laborers and craftsmen to build the castle, often employing deceitful tactics to keep them in the dark about his true intentions. He frequently changed the plans and designs, ensuring that no one could piece together the full layout of the building. This constant state of flux contributed to the building's eerie and unsettling atmosphere. The role of the World's Fair. As the World's Fair opened its doors to the public, Holmes was positioned to take full advantage of the influx of visitors. He lured countless individuals, many of whom were young women, into his castle with promises of affordable lodging and luxurious amenities. His charm and charisma made him an appealing figure, and many were captivated by the allure of staying at a hotel associated with the grandeur of the fair. Holmes Hotel was strategically located just a few blocks from the fairgrounds, making it a prime spot for weary travelers seeking rest after long days of exploring the exposition. As guests arrived, they unknowingly entered a den of horrors, where their lives would be cut short by the man who appeared to be their gracious host. His notable victims. Among the many victims of Holmes was Heinous, a young woman who had come to Chicago seeking a better life. Drawn in by Holmes' charm and the promise of a job, she became one of his first targets. Her disappearance went largely unnoticed in the chaos surrounding the fair, a tragic pattern that would repeat itself as Holmes claimed more victims. Another prominent victim was P.J. Holmes, a wealthy businessman who had invested in Holmes' schemes. When he became suspicious of Holmes' activities, he too vanished without a trace. Holmes' ability to eliminate those who posed a threat was a chilling testament to his cunning and ruthlessness. As the fair continued and Holmes' murderous activities escalated, he maintained a facade of respectability, presenting himself as a successful businessman. But beneath this veneer lay a deeply disturbed individual who reveled in the terror he inflicted upon others, using the guise of hospitality to mask his true nature. The aftermath of the fair. The World's Fair closed in October 1893, but the dark legacy of H.H. Holmes and the murder castle was just beginning to unfold. As law enforcement agencies began to investigate the numerous disappearances connected to Holmes, the facade that he had built around himself began to crumble. The castle, which had served as a hub of horror, would eventually be the focal point of one of the most notorious criminal investigations in American history. The fair, which was meant to celebrate human achievement and progress, had unwittingly provided the perfect backdrop for one of the darkest chapters in the nation's history. The juxtaposition of the triumphs displayed at the World's Fair against the atrocities committed by Holmes would haunt the collective memory of the American public for generations to come. This means that the World's Columbian Exposition of 1893 served as both a catalyst and a cover for H.H. Holmes' gruesome activities. The murder castle, with its twisted design and sinister purpose, became a symbol of his depravity, allowing him to exploit the very essence of trust and hospitality. Now, we will delve into the investigation that ultimately led to Holmes' capture and the chilling revelations that followed. His modus operandi and psychological manipulation. H.H. Holmes was not just a murderer, he was a master manipulator who wielded charm and intelligence as his primary weapons. His modus operandi was characterized by a calculated approach to luring victims, often exploiting their vulnerabilities and desires. Holmes possessed an uncanny ability to read people, allowing him to tailor his interactions to fit the needs and expectations of those he sought to prey upon. Holmes often presented himself as a charismatic and successful businessman, portraying an image of affluence and stability. He was known for his well-groomed appearance and confident demeanor, which made him appealing to potential victims. Whether it was through friendly conversation or a seemingly genuine offer of assistance, Holmes built rapport with individuals, creating a false sense of safety. The art of deception. One of Holmes' most notorious methods of deception involved his ability to create false identities and backstories. He frequently used aliases, which allowed him to evade scrutiny and maintain multiple lives. His capacity for deception was vast, and he crafted elaborate tales that made it easy for him to gain the trust of others. For instance, he often posed as a wealthy businessman looking for investors for various schemes, luring individuals into his web of deceit. Many of his victims were drawn in by promises of jobs or opportunities, only to find themselves trapped in a deadly game. His ability to fabricate stories was crucial in establishing credibility, allowing him to manipulate his victims until it was too late. How he targeted his victims. Holmes had a specific profile for his victims, often targeting young, vulnerable women. Many of these women were transient or seeking new opportunities in the bustling city of Chicago, making them easy prey for someone as cunning as Holmes. He was particularly attracted to those who were traveling alone or had recently relocated, as they lacked a support network and were less likely to be missed quickly. His victims included Heinous, a young woman who sought a better life in Chicago. She was drawn in by Holmes' charm and promises of opportunity. Her disappearance went largely unnoticed amidst the fair's excitement. P.J. Holmes, a wealthy businessman who became wary of Holmes' schemes and vanished shortly thereafter, illustrating how Holmes eliminated those who posed a threat to his criminal activities. Holmes was adept at identifying individuals who were in precarious situations, using their desperation to his advantage. Once he had gained their trust, he would often invite them to stay at the murder castle, where their fates would take a horrific turn. His method of murder. The methods Holmes employed to kill were as varied as they were gruesome. Once inside the murder castle, victims were subjected to a range of horrifying fates. He often used poison, as it allowed for a discreet and seemingly natural death. However, he was also known to be physically violent, using methods such as strangulation or bludgeoning when necessary. Some of his more notorious methods included poisoning. Holmes utilized various poisons to incapacitate his victims. This method allowed him to administer lethal doses subtly, often through food or drink. The poison would take effect gradually, enabling him to feign innocence and avoid suspicion. Gas chambers. The secret gas chambers in the murder castle were designed to look like ordinary bathrooms. Victims would enter, thinking they were simply using the facilities, only to be met with a deadly release of gas. This method was particularly insidious, as it allowed Holmes to kill without alerting others. Dismemberment. Once victims were dead, Holmes often dismembered their bodies to facilitate disposal. He would use the basement of the murder castle as a makeshift operating room, where he could dissect and dispose of remains with relative ease. The dismembered parts could then be hidden or destroyed, ensuring that no evidence remained. Fire and cremation. To eliminate any trace of his crimes, Holmes constructed a crematorium in the basement, where he would incinerate bodies. This method ensured that nothing would be left behind, allowing him to evade detection. The role of the murder castle. The architecture of the murder castle itself played a crucial role in Holmes' ability to commit his crimes. The building's design was intentionally chaotic, with confusing layouts and hidden spaces that allowed him to move freely without being seen. The secret passages and trapdoors provided numerous ways to dispose of bodies or hide evidence, making it exceedingly difficult for law enforcement to piece together the events that occurred within its walls. The castle's layout included hidden rooms. Many rooms were concealed from view, allowing Holmes to keep victims isolated from the rest of the building. These hidden spaces also served as storage for bodies before they were disposed of. Soundproofing. The soundproof rooms enabled Holmes to carry out his murders without attracting attention. Guests in adjacent rooms would be blissfully unaware of the horrors taking place just a few feet away. Basement operations. The basement was the site of Holmes' most gruesome activities, equipped with tools for dismemberment and incineration. This area was crucial for maintaining the secrecy of his operations, allowing him to dispose of evidence with relative ease. The aftermath of his crimes. Holmes' modus operandi was a chilling combination of charm, deception, and brutality. He operated with a cold, calculating efficiency, leaving behind a trail of victims who vanished without a trace. Many of his actions went unnoticed for months, as the chaotic nature of urban life and the anonymity it provided allowed him to evade capture. However, as more individuals began to disappear, whispers of suspicion started to circulate. The police, initially overwhelmed by the sheer scale of disappearances linked to the fair, eventually turned their attention to Holmes. The investigation that would follow would unearth the horrific reality of what had transpired within the murder castle, revealing the true extent of Holmes' depravity. So basically, H.H. Holmes' modus operandi was a meticulously crafted combination of psychological manipulation, deception, and brutal violence. His ability to prey on the vulnerable and maintain a facade of respectability allowed him to operate undetected for far too long. As we delve deeper into the narrative of Holmes' life, we will explore the investigation and eventual capture that brought an end to his reign of terror, exposing the chilling truths hidden within the walls of the murder castle. Investigation and Holmes's capture. As the World's Columbian Exposition closed its doors in October 1893, the excitement that had enveloped Chicago began to wane. However, the end of the fair also marked the beginning of a troubling trend. the increasing number of disappearances linked to H. Holmes and his infamous murder castle. In the months following the fair, various individuals began to vanish without a trace, raising alarm among family members and friends. Young women, in particular, seemed to be the primary targets of Holmes' predatory behavior. The sheer volume of disappearances in the area led to growing concerns among residents, who began to notice a pattern emerging. Authorities initially struggled to connect the dots. The chaotic atmosphere of the fair had drawn in countless visitors, many of whom were transient. The lack of a centralized reporting mechanism for missing persons made it challenging for authorities to piece together the alarming number of cases that were emerging. However, as more families reported missing loved ones, the police began to recognize that something was amiss. The catalyst for investigation. The catalyst for the investigation into Holmes came through the efforts of Benjamin Pittesel, a former associate of Holmes who had fallen victim to his deceit. Pittesel, a carpenter, had partnered with Holmes in various schemes and was enticed by promises of wealth. However, as Pittesel grew suspicious of Holmes' activities, he began to question the legitimacy of their business dealings. In 1894, Pittesel disappeared, leaving behind a wife and 3 children. His wife, Carrie Pittesel, became increasingly concerned about her husband's safety, particularly as rumors circulated about a string of disappearances in Chicago. After Pittesel's sudden vanishing, Carrie reached out to Holmes, who had promised to assist her in locating her husband. Holmes, however, was not forthcoming with information and instead spun a web of lies. As suspicions grew, Carrie Pittesel contacted the authorities, and the investigation into Holmes began in earnest. Detective Frank Geyer of the Philadelphia Police was assigned to the case after Carrie reported her husband's disappearance. Detective Geyer quickly uncovered a disturbing pattern of deceit and manipulation surrounding Holmes. Unraveling the web of lies. Detective Geyer's investigation led him to Chicago, where he began to piece together the connections between Holmes and the numerous disappearances. He focused on the Pittesel case, delving into Holmes' past and his activities surrounding the World's Fair. Geyer conducted interviews with former associates, employees, and victims' families, uncovering the chilling reality of Holmes' operations. As Geyer gathered evidence, he learned about Holmes' numerous aliases and the various schemes he had concocted to defraud individuals. The detective's inquiries soon revealed the existence of the murder castle, prompting him to dig deeper into the building and its sinister activities. Holmes' charm and intelligence had allowed him to evade suspicion for far too long. But as Geyer uncovered details about the castle's strange design and the unsettling accounts from former guests and employees, the pieces of the puzzle began to fit together. Important breakthrough. The breakthrough in the investigation came when Geyer learned of the disappearance of 3 of Pittesel's children. Holmes had taken the children under the pretense of helping Carrie while she searched for her husband. Instead, he had taken them to the murder castle, where he intended to eliminate any potential witnesses to his crimes. Determined to find the truth, Geyer examined the castle itself. With the help of local law enforcement, he conducted a thorough search of the premises, uncovering evidence of Holmes' gruesome activities. The castle's basement revealed a chilling sight: dismembered human remains, tools for dissection, and evidence of arson. It became clear that Holmes had used the castle not only as a hotel but as a place for murder and disposal. Geyer's investigation led him to uncover the remains of Pittesel, which had been discovered in a shallow grave in the backyard of a house in Toronto, where Holmes had previously stayed. The discovery solidified the case against Holmes, revealing the depth of his depravity and the extent of his crimes. The capture of H. Holmes. With mounting evidence against him, Holmes was arrested on November 17, 1894, in Boston, Massachusetts, where he had fled after the investigation began to close in. He had been living under yet another alias, Dr. Henry Howard Holmes, and had managed to evade authorities for a short time. However, his luck was about to run out. Holmes was apprehended by local police after a tip-off, and he was quickly extradited back to Chicago, where he faced a series of charges. The media frenzy surrounding his arrest was intense, as reporters and citizens alike were captivated by the story of the man who had become the embodiment of evil. Holmes' trial drew national attention, revealing the shocking details of his crimes and the extent of his deception. The court trial. Holmes' trial began in 1895, and it became one of the most sensational courtroom dramas of the time. The prosecution presented a wealth of evidence, including testimonies from survivors, family members of missing individuals, and police investigators. The details of the murder castle and the horrors that occurred within its walls captured the public's imagination, eliciting widespread horror and fascination. Holmes, known for his quick wit and charm, attempted to manipulate the courtroom proceedings, often trying to portray himself as a victim of circumstance. However, as the evidence mounted against him, his defense became increasingly desperate. He even attempted to blame his actions on a supposed multiple personality disorder, claiming he was not fully aware of his heinous acts. Despite his efforts, the jury found Holmes guilty of murder, and he was sentenced to death. The trial was a turning point in American crime history, as it highlighted the dark underbelly of urban life and the potential for evil lurking beneath the surface of society. The execution of H. Holmes. H. Holmes was executed on May 7, 1896, at Cook County Jail in Chicago. His death marked the end of a dark chapter in American history, but the legacy of his crimes would continue to haunt the nation. Holmes reportedly displayed a calm demeanor in the moments leading up to his execution, maintaining an air of arrogance even in the face of death. In his final moments, he was offered the opportunity to confess, but his pride prevented him from admitting the extent of his misdeeds. Instead, he opted for a more theatrical exit, claiming that he would come back from the dead to haunt those who had wronged him. The aftermath. The investigation and capture of H. Holmes not only brought justice to his victims but also exposed the vulnerabilities of society during the Gilded Age. His crimes served as a cautionary tale, reminding the public of the potential dangers that lurked in the shadows of urban life. In the aftermath of Holmes' execution, the murder castle was demolished, but its legacy lived on, inspiring countless stories and theories about the nature of evil and the psychology of serial killers. Holmes' life and crimes would continue to captivate the public imagination, leading to numerous books, documentaries, and films that sought to unravel the chilling mystery of America's first serial killer. Finally, the investigation and capture of H. Holmes were marked by a meticulous unraveling of his web of lies and deceit. The tireless efforts of law enforcement, fueled by the determination to seek justice for his victims, ultimately led to the downfall of a man who had evaded capture for far too long. Now in the next segment, we will explore the trial and conviction of H. Holmes, delving into the public reaction and the lasting impact of his crimes on society. Trial and conviction. The trial of H. Holmes began on November 13, 1895, at the Cook County Courthouse in Chicago. The proceedings drew unprecedented media attention, with reporters from across the nation flocking to the courtroom to cover one of the most sensational trials in American history. The public was both horrified and fascinated by the revelations surrounding Holmes' crimes, and the courtroom quickly became a spectacle that captured the imagination of an entire nation. Holmes faced multiple charges, most notably the murder of Benjamin Pitezel, and the prosecution aimed to present a comprehensive case that demonstrated not only his guilt in this particular instance but also the broader pattern of his heinous actions. The courtroom was filled with spectators eager to witness the unfolding drama of a man who had become a symbol of evil. Prosecution's case. The prosecution, led by State's Attorney John H. Whiting, presented a robust case against Holmes, outlining the key elements of his modus operandi and the chilling details of his crimes. The prosecution relied on a combination of physical evidence, witness testimonies, and Holmes' own admissions to construct a compelling narrative of guilt. Key points of the prosecution included testimony from survivors. Several individuals who had narrowly escaped Holmes' clutches testified about their experiences, detailing how he had lured them into his murderous scheme. Their harrowing accounts provided the jury with a vivid picture of Holmes as a manipulative predator. Evidence of murder. The prosecution presented evidence of remains found in the basement of the murder castle, linking them directly to missing persons. Forensic analysis of the remains revealed that they had been dismembered, corroborating the testimonies of those who had escaped Holmes' grasp. The Pitezel case. The prosecution focused heavily on the case of Benjamin Pitezel, presenting evidence that Holmes had murdered him for financial gain. Witnesses described how Holmes had taken Pittel's children under the pretense of caring for them, only for them to vanish as well. Holmes' deceit. The prosecution highlighted Holmes' history of deception, detailing his numerous aliases and fraudulent schemes. They painted a picture of a man who had spent his life manipulating others for personal gain, culminating in his most heinous acts. Holmes' defense strategy. Holmes, ever the manipulator, attempted to mount a defense that would exonerate him from the charges. His defense attorney, William H. Dargan, argued that there was insufficient evidence to convict Holmes of murder, claiming that the prosecution's case relied heavily on circumstantial evidence and witness testimonies that were unreliable. Holmes himself took the stand in a bid to defend his innocence. He attempted to portray himself as a victim of circumstance, arguing that he had been misunderstood and that the evidence against him was fabricated. He claimed that he was being unfairly targeted due to his wealth and success. Key defense arguments. Insanity plea. Holmes attempted to introduce the notion of insanity into his defense, suggesting that he was suffering from a multiple personality disorder. He argued that his alter ego was responsible for the murders, distancing himself from the horrific actions attributed to him. However, this defense was met with skepticism, as the prosecution's evidence painted a clear picture of premeditated murder. Questioning witness credibility, Holmes and his defense team worked to discredit the testimonies of witnesses, arguing that many were motivated by a desire for fame or monetary gain. However, their efforts largely fell flat in the face of the overwhelming evidence presented by the prosecution. The jury's deliberation. After weeks of testimony and evidence presentation, the jury began its deliberations on December 2, 1895. The atmosphere in the courtroom was charged with anticipation, as the public and media awaited the outcome of what had become a highly publicized trial. The jury deliberated for just a few hours before returning with a verdict. The speed of their decision suggested that they had found the evidence against Holmes to be compelling and irrefutable. On December 5, 1895, the jury announced their verdict, guilty of murder in the first degree. Sentencing. The sentencing phase followed shortly after the verdict. Holmes was brought before the judge, and the courtroom was filled with spectators eager to witness the fate of the man who had terrorized so many. The prosecution sought the death penalty, arguing that Holmes' crimes were particularly heinous and warranted the ultimate punishment. In a dramatic turn, Holmes maintained his composure during the sentencing, even expressing a sense of defiance. He famously stated that he would not fear death and that he was prepared to face whatever consequences awaited him. On May 7, 1896, Judge Robert E. Crowe sentenced Holmes to death by hanging, stating that his crimes were among the most heinous and atrocious that this court has ever seen. Public reaction and media frenzy. The trial and conviction of H. Holmes captured the public's imagination and sparked widespread media coverage. Newspapers across the country published sensational accounts of the trial, detailing the grisly nature of Holmes' crimes and the shocking revelations that emerged during the proceedings. The story of Holmes resonated deeply with the public, reflecting broader societal fears about the dangers lurking in urban life during the Gilded Age. Sensationalism in media coverage often blurred the lines between fact and fiction, leading to the creation of myths and legends surrounding Holmes' life and crimes. As the trial concluded and the verdict was rendered, Holmes became a figure of infamy, a man whose actions would leave an indelible mark on American crime history. His story highlighted the potential for evil that exists within society and the chilling reality of a predator who had exploited the vulnerabilities of others for his own gain. The legacy of the trial. Holmes' trial and subsequent conviction had a lasting impact on the American legal system and the public's perception of crime. The case underscored the importance of forensic evidence and the role of investigative techniques in solving crimes. It also spurred discussions about the psychological motivations of serial killers, foreshadowing future studies into the minds of such criminals. In the years that followed, Holmes' trial would become a focal point for discussions around criminal psychology and the nature of evil, inspiring numerous books, films, and documentaries that sought to unravel the complexities of his character and actions. The trial and conviction of H. Holmes marked a pivotal moment in American criminal history, revealing the dark depths of human depravity and the lengths to which individuals will go to manipulate and harm others. The sensational nature of the trial captivated the public and left a lasting legacy that would resonate for generations. In the next segment, we will explore the legacy and impact of H. Holmes, examining how his crimes shaped societal views on evil and the true crime genre. Legacy and impact. The cultural fascination with H. Holmes. The legacy of H. Holmes extends far beyond his gruesome crimes. It has become a cornerstone of American true crime lore. His story has captivated the public imagination for over a century, inspiring countless books, films, documentaries, and academic studies. The blend of horror, deception, and the complexities of his character has made Holmes a figure of enduring interest, representing the archetype of the American serial killer. Holmes' life and actions highlight the darker aspects of urbanization during the Gilded Age. As cities expanded and populations grew, so too did the complexities of human behavior. The anonymity afforded by urban life allowed individuals like Holmes to exploit societal vulnerabilities, creating an unsettling dichotomy between the rapid progress of civilization and the potential for human depravity. Influence on true crime genre. The narrative of H. Holmes has significantly influenced the true crime genre, which began to gain traction in the early 20th century. Authors and filmmakers have drawn upon his life to explore themes of evil, morality, and the psychology of killers. Works inspired by Holmes include books. Titles such as The Devil in the White City by Eric Larson delve into the intertwining of Holmes' story with the history of the World's Fair. This book not only recounts the chilling details of his crimes but also examines the cultural and historical context of the era, making Holmes a pivotal figure in American history. Documentaries. Numerous documentaries have explored Holmes' life, including the American Experience episode titled H. Holmes, America's First Serial Killer. These productions often incorporate dramatic reenactments, expert interviews, and historical analysis, bringing the story to life for contemporary audiences. Films. Holmes has been depicted in various films, reinforcing his status as a cultural icon of horror. The fictionalized portrayal of his character often emphasizes the psychological aspects of his crimes, contributing to the archetype of the charming but deadly sociopath. Holmes' story has also paved the way for subsequent discussions about the nature of serial killers and the psychological frameworks used to understand them. His case exemplifies the complexities that can arise from a combination of intelligence, charm, and malevolence, making him a subject of interest for psychologists and criminologists alike. The impact on crime and law enforcement. The shocking revelations surrounding Holmes' crimes had a profound impact on law enforcement practices and the legal system in the United States. His ability to evade capture for so long, coupled with the sheer scale of his offenses, highlighted significant flaws in the way missing persons cases were handled at the time. Key impacts include improved investigative techniques. The investigation into Holmes prompted law enforcement agencies to adopt more thorough investigative practices. The need for better communication between jurisdictions became evident, as Holmes had frequently crossed state lines in his criminal activities. This case underscored the importance of interagency cooperation in solving complex criminal cases. Forensic advances. Holmes' trial was one of the early instances where forensic evidence played a crucial role in securing a conviction. The analysis of remains and other physical evidence helped to establish a framework for modern forensic science, paving the way for advancements in criminal investigations. Public awareness. The sensational nature of Holmes' crimes and trial brought issues of safety and crime prevention to the forefront of public consciousness. The fear of becoming a victim of a serial killer became a real concern for many, leading to increased discussions about personal safety and the need for vigilance in urban environments. A reflection on evil. Holmes' legacy also serves as a chilling reminder of the potential for evil that exists within humanity. His ability to charm and manipulate those around him raises profound questions about morality, trust, and the nature of evil itself. The duality of his character, the charismatic businessman juxtaposed with the remorseless killer, has led to extensive exploration of the psychological factors that contribute to such behavior. Scholars and psychologists have studied Holmes as a case study in psychopathy and sociopathy, examining the traits that enabled him to commit atrocities without remorse. His life serves as a cautionary tale about the darker facets of human nature and the complexities of criminal psychology. The myths and misinformation. Over the years, the story of H. Holmes has become enveloped in myths and sensationalism. Popular culture often exaggerates certain aspects of his life, leading to a distorted view of the man behind the crimes. The notion of Holmes as the ultimate murderer has been romanticized in various forms of media, overshadowing the reality of his actions. This phenomenon reflects a broader tendency within true crime narratives to sensationalize events for entertainment purposes. While Holmes' story is undoubtedly horrific, the focus on sensationalism can sometimes obscure the real suffering of his victims and their families. Efforts to demystify Holmes and present a more accurate account of his crimes are essential to honoring the memory of those he harmed. The legacy of H. Holmes is multifaceted, encompassing cultural fascination, influence on the true crime genre, advancements in law enforcement, and reflections on the nature of evil. His life and crimes have left an indelible mark on American history, serving as both a cautionary tale and a source of intrigue for generations. In the final segment of this true crime story, we will reflect on the lasting lessons learned from the chilling story of H. Holmes and the ongoing implications for society today. Conclusion. The chilling saga of H. Holmes, often dubbed America's first serial killer, serves as a profound exploration of the complexities of human nature, the darkness that can reside within, and the societal conditions that allow such evil to flourish. As we reflect on the life and crimes of Holmes, several key lessons and themes emerge that continue to resonate in contemporary society. The nature of evil. Holmes' life epitomizes the unsettling truth that evil can manifest in the most unsuspecting forms. His charm, intelligence, and charisma allowed him to navigate society with ease, masking his sinister intentions behind a facade of success and sophistication. This duality raises critical questions about the nature of evil and the factors that contribute to a person's capacity for heinous acts. Psychologists and criminologists have long studied the characteristics that define sociopaths and psychopaths, with Holmes serving as a prototype for such discussions. His ability to manipulate, deceive, and ultimately destroy lives highlights the complexities of human behavior and the potential for malevolence that exists within us all. The case of Holmes encourages a deeper understanding of the psychological underpinnings of criminal behavior, urging society to consider the roots of evil rather than merely its manifestations. The importance of vigilance. Holmes' story also underscores the necessity of vigilance in an increasingly anonymous and urbanized society. His ability to prey on vulnerable individuals, particularly young women seeking opportunities, demonstrates the perilous nature of trust in an environment where appearances can be deceiving. As urban life continues to evolve, the lessons from Holmes' crimes remain relevant. Individuals must remain aware of their surroundings and critical of those who may appear overly charming or trustworthy. The importance of communication and community vigilance cannot be overstated. Building strong support networks can help protect against those who would exploit the vulnerabilities of others. The evolution of law enforcement. The investigation and trial of H. Holmes prompted significant changes in law enforcement practices and the legal system. The case revealed the need for better investigative techniques, improved communication between jurisdictions, and advancements in forensic science. In the years since Holmes' capture and conviction, law enforcement agencies have increasingly adopted a more scientific approach to crime investigation. The integration of forensic psychology, DNA analysis, and advanced investigative technologies has transformed the landscape of criminal justice, enabling law enforcement to solve complex cases more effectively. Holmes' legacy has influenced the evolution of criminal profiling and the study of serial killers, paving the way for more comprehensive strategies in preventing and addressing violent crime. The impact on public awareness. The public's fascination with H. Holmes has also led to increased awareness of the risks associated with crime and the importance of personal safety. The sensational media coverage surrounding Holmes' trial and the subsequent stories that emerged have kept the conversation about serial killers and violent crime alive in popular culture. However, this fascination also carries with it the responsibility to remember the victims and their families. While the story of Holmes is captivating, it is essential to focus on the real human suffering that resulted from his actions. Acknowledging and honoring the victims allows society to cultivate a more compassionate understanding of the consequences of violence. The myths and realities. As the narrative of H.H. Holmes has been retold through books, films, and documentaries, it has become intertwined with myths and sensationalism. While dramatizations can serve to engage audiences, they can also obscure the reality of the crimes and the genuine suffering experienced by victims and their families. In striving for accuracy in retelling true crime stories, it is crucial to separate myth from fact and to approach these narratives with sensitivity and respect. By doing so, society can foster a deeper understanding of the complexities of crime, the motivations behind it, and the human lives affected by such tragedies. Final reflections. The story of H.H. Holmes is a harrowing reminder of the potential for darkness that exists within the human experience. His legacy invites us to reflect on the nature of evil, the importance of vigilance, and the ongoing evolution of law enforcement in the face of crime. As we continue to explore the complexities of human behavior, let us remain committed to understanding the roots of violence, promoting safety, and honoring the memories of those who have suffered at the hands of individuals like Holmes. Holmes' life serves not only as a chilling tale of terror but also as a critical lens through which we can examine our society, our values, and our collective responsibility to safeguard against the insidious nature of evil. As we move forward, may we carry the lessons learned from this dark chapter in history, fostering a society that is aware, vigilant, and compassionate. And that's the end of this story. If you enjoyed listening to this true story, then do subscribe to Horror Vault channel in order to watch our upcoming stories. I will see you in the next video.